rather than say something as general and as ambiguous as the subject is in a desirable neighborhood, why not tell the client what it is that makes the subject neighborhood desirable?
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome, everybody. This is Dustin Harris, the Appraiser Coach, and this, of course, is the Appraiser Coach Podcast. Got a good friend, Mr. Tim Andersen, coming up. I first want to remind you that we're sponsored by a couple of great companies, one of them being Working RE Magazine. Just had dinner with Isaac Peck, who is the chief editor at Working RE just a few days ago. Really enjoyed catching up with him. Great company you need to get to know, workingre.com. Again, workingre.com. Another great company you need to get to know if you don't already, and that, of course, is CoreLogic and Alamode. Alamode, of course, is the software that I've been using for many years. You should be as well. Check them out by calling them at 800-ALAMODE or going to their website at alamode.com. I want to welcome back to the program Mr. Tim Andersen, good friend of mine, USPAP instructor. Welcome back, Tim.
Dustin, hi, thank you. And congratulations on finding other than a blue shirt in your closet this morning.
There is a story behind that, and I'm glad you brought it up, but I won't go into it, and not important. But thank you. Yeah, I once in a while, I do wear a different colored shirt. So, of course, Tim is the Appraiser's Advocate. You can find him by emailing him at tim@theappraisersadvocate.com, tim@theappraisersadvocate.com. And Tim, we typically do what we call the Dear USPAP Instructor, where we answer questions from the audience, but I want to divert today. Is that okay?
Let us divert.
Okay, awesome. One of the things that I am seeing happening, and I think you're seeing it as well, Tim, is that there's been a little bit of kickback from the GSEs, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHFA, regarding the language that we use in our reports. Let's pause there for a second and just talk about that. Why are we seeing such a backlash, if you will, from the GSEs about the language that we've just used forever?
Okay, Dustin, I'm going to do my best not to get on my soapbox.
Fair enough.
I'm going to do my best to avoid profanity.
Good enough.
Okay, a question is, do the GSEs have the right or the responsibility or the latitude, for that matter, to tell us how to write? Okay, to tell us how to write? No, they don't. To suggest how to write? Yeah, they do. Just like, you get an appraisal from one of your associates, and you don't particularly like the structure of a sentence or a paragraph, and you call up and say, "Hey, let's consider it this way." And the appraiser goes, "Oh, well, okay, fine. All right, let's do that." All right. So, do they have the responsibility? Probably. Do they have the right? No. Do they have the latitude? Yeah, they make suggestions. But part of the problem, Dustin, is not so much that this is new, because it isn't. But part of the problem is we appraisers have, through good or ill, over the years, fallen into a situation where we get very comfortable saying something because we know what it means, but nobody else may know what it means. For example, and this is a hoary old cliche. The subject is in a desirable neighborhood. Well, what the hell is a desirable neighborhood?
Okay, I have to pause and admit I've used that word for a long time.
Oh, we all have. Okay. All right. Now, what makes it desirable? Well, is it desirable because there have been no nuclear explosions in there in the past couple of weeks? Yeah, that's probably
makes it pretty desirable.
Yeah, it makes it pretty desirable. Is it desirable because the last time there was severe flooding, this neighborhood didn't get flooded? Yeah, probably. But the point is, Dustin, we're given a relatively narrow amount of space in which to communicate our thoughts, which is one of the reasons the GSEs are moving from a reporting form to a reporting format. So we had to be very economical in our language in order to get it to fit, because nobody likes to say, or nobody likes to read, the subject is in a desirable neighborhood because see addendum. And then you got to flip to the addendum and find where that sentence continues, etc. All right. So we wrote things like, the subject's in a desirable neighborhood. And the word desirable in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with the word desirable in and of itself. The issue is why, what makes it desirable? Well, this is where we've got to say, it's obvious the market wants to buy here as opposed to someplace else, because in the last 12 months, prices have gone up 7%. Whereas in generally similar neighborhoods elsewhere, they've gone up only 4%. Okay, well, the market obviously desires that neighborhood. And then we say things like, possibly one of the reasons that people are buying here is because it is close to thus and so hospital, which is a major employer in the city. Or there is a new automobile plant being built, which is going to bring in over 500 new jobs, the lowest of which is going to pay $70,000 a year, and the highest is going to pay into six figures.
Right.
Okay.
Now, let me just pause for a second, because I think it's really important, the point that you're making. I hope it doesn't get lost on the listeners. When you say that there is an automobile plant, right, you could say there's a desirable automobile plant, right? But you didn't. What you stated was the number of jobs that the automobile plant would bring. The difference is, and this is really what I want to emphasize, the word desirable is an opinion. 500 new jobs is a fact.
Yeah, it's subjective. It's an opinion. Yeah.
And I think that's really the key, right? I will just pause and say this, Tim. I don't really want to get into the racial language here, because I know that's part of this as well. We've talked about the racial thing here. You and I have talked about it. I've talked about it personally. People can go back and search my podcast. I've not shied away from that subject, but that's not the point of today's podcast. The point of today's podcast is, if I can just state it plainly, we have, and I'm throwing myself in the mix here as well. I've already admitted I use the word desirable, right? We appraisers have used these words forever and forever. And now we are getting our backs up because Fannie Mae says you can't use that word anymore. Freddie Mac says you can't use that word anymore. FHFA says you need to change and choose a different word. The AMCs that we work for have a list of words that we can use and what we can't use. Now, some of those are racially associated. That's not the point. The point that I have to make here today, Tim, and I hope that you and I can kind of flesh this out a little bit, is we're getting upset because somebody's telling us what words they want to see in the report, and which words, more importantly, what words they don't want to see in the reports, right? But do we actually step back to ask ourselves, should I have been using that word all along?
Probably no.
Yeah.
But I remember many years ago, doctors used to recommend a cigarette after dinner because it helped the digestion. Well, no, it didn't. Yeah, that was just stupid. But I mean, that was the recognized wisdom at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've all used desirable. Well, don't use it anymore. Instead of saying the subject is in a desirable neighborhood, say something like because of the increase in sales prices in the neighborhood over the last 12 months,
which you can prove, by the way, or at least support.
Yeah. The market clearly wants properties here, and based on my analyses of the data, here are 5 reasons why people are willing to pay a premium to live here rather than live in generally similar subdivision, but not here. And you list the reasons. Okay, now you don't have to say it's desirable. That's obvious because the market wants to live there. And there's nothing racial about that. It's close to employment. It's close to the schools you want your kids to attend, be they public or private. It's close to friends. You know, let's face it, you're not old enough to worry about living in an over 55 community. You will be soon. But there is a people desire to live in over 55 communities simply because they want to be with people their own age. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying that either. But that's not discriminatory. But the problem is, as you pointed out, desirable is subjective. It's an opinion. Okay, well, support it. All right, once you support it, fine. You know, an attorney walks in and says, "Judge, my client's innocent. Let her go." And the judge doesn't say, "Oh, okay." The judge says, "Prove it."
Yeah.
Well, we don't even have to prove it. We just have to support it. So that's all Fannie Mae is saying. It's saying, okay, support your conclusion. That's all. Convince us. You know, they're taking pretty much a neutral attitude. I mean, they want to lend the money. They don't make any money if they don't lend money. So they want to lend the money, but persuade them. Okay, if you invest in this house, in this neighborhood, at this particular time, your chances of having to foreclose on this house are no greater than any place else. And here's why. That's all. That's all it's asking.
We're talking with Mr. Tim Andersen. Of course, he is the appraiser's advocate. When we get back to him, I want to talk about a couple of other words that are being thrown around out there that, you know, just to be honest, I think we ought to question our reports and maybe look through our reports and say, hey, could we do better? First, I want to pause and remind you that we are sponsored by a company that will allow you to do better. You'll be able to do more with less, meaning the investment that you put into your software will allow you to be more effective, more efficient, and guess what, folks? Make more money. That software is called Alamode. If you're with any other product out there, take a look at them. Take a look at Alamode, call their number and say, hey, listen, I'm with ABC Software. Talk to me about Alamode. How are you different? They will answer your questions. And I'm telling you, folks, it is the best that's out there. Alamode.com or 800 Alamode. If you want to know more about the industry that you are in fact, the very topic that we are talking about today has already been covered multiple times in a little magazine called Working RE. Folks, it is free. You will get it in the mail. You can get it in your email. You just have to go to their website and sign up. WorkingRE.com. Again, WorkingRE.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. I'm with my good friend, Mr. Tim Andersen. Welcome back, Tim. If you don't mind, Tim, just briefly tell the listeners what it is that you do since you're no longer actively appraising.
Well, 2 weeks ago, I fell off my bicycle and broke my left arm.
Well, I don't know if people can see that on YouTube. You actually are wearing a sling today. And thankfully, for all of our sakes, actually, it might have been entertaining otherwise, but thankfully, you did not take your pain meds today. And so you're at the top of your game, right?
Well, that's questionable. Dustin and I help appraisers who find themselves with questions. Questions like, okay, how do I figure out highest and best use? Or, why is the state jumping up and down on me for this? Or even better, what can I do to make sure the state doesn't jump up and down on me for this? And because I retired from appraising back in 2014, I have the time to do that now and podcast and write and teach and travel. So while I've curtailed the traveling for the next little while because I can't move my left arm, I still do all that other stuff and still love it. And I'm grateful for you bringing that up. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking your time. By the way, Tim does not get paid directly for being on this on this podcast. He just comes on out of his the goodness of his heart, and I appreciate him sharing his wisdom, his experience. Today, Tim, we're talking about the words that we use, and let's be honest, there's a lot of appraisers that kind of have gotten their back up regarding the fact that they have used certain words for years and years and years, and now those words are in question. What would you say to appraisers?
Well, take a look at the words you're using to see if they mean anything. And you have to understand, I'm a frustrated high school English teacher. And one of my favorites is close proximity. Well, what the hell is far proximity? You know,
That's a good question.
proximity,
Okay,
proximity
listen.
means close.
Let's pause for a second, because again, that's a phrase that I have used, that it's within close proximity to, universities and grocery stores and, fill in the blank, right? We use the word close proximity, but you're right. When you step, and I guess I never really questioned it. And now people are saying, well, you can't use that phrase. Well, why not? And of course we think, well, what's racial about that? No, they're not saying that. What they're saying is close proximity is an opinion.
Well, it not only is it an opinion, it's also redundant. It's like saying hot water heater. Do we know any cold water heaters? So,
Good
yes,
point. Close
yes,
proximity. How would it? Yeah, within proximity, within close proximity, the same damn thing, right?
yeah. Or how about, a major hospital is only 2 miles northwest, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it is an opinion, because if you live in Alaska, chances are, if you live other than in one of the major cities, chances are you've got an airplane, or at least access to an airplane. And you might go to the store for a quart of milk via a 30-minute airplane ride.
Right.
Whereas if you live in Manhattan, you probably go to the bodega across the street. So close proximity is subjective. It is an opinion. Therefore, instead of saying the airport is in close proximity, how about a major international airport's only 7 miles away? What's wrong with that?
I'm going to throw myself on the altar even more to Tim. I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but until recently, I had the phrase in my report frequently, not on every report, but frequently, within driving distance of ... right? And when you and I talked about this off the air, I started thinking to myself, Panama City is within driving distance.
I mean, I live in Florida, you live in Idaho, and that's within driving distance. It's not a 5-day drive, but it's within driving distance. Yeah.
So your point is, as we look at these phrases, as we look at these words, rather than getting upset, rather than getting angry and saying, well, how dare you question the language that I use, maybe we should step back and ask ourselves, should we have been using that language all along?
Well, let's look at the logic, Dustin. Rather than say something as general and as ambiguous as the subject is in a desirable neighborhood, why not tell the client what it is that makes the subject neighborhood desirable? Okay. Or instead of saying the subject is in close proximity to the hospital, say, it's 7 miles away as the crow flies, or by road, or whatever. So actually, well, yeah, the GSEs are saying, please don't say A, B, C, and D, say E, F, G, and H, which is in one sense a form of censorship. Censorship means you don't have the right to say what you're thinking. Oh, why don't I? Because I say so. Well, why do you say so? Because I'm the state. Well, obviously the GSEs aren't the state. So they're not trying to censor us. They are trying, however, to get us to support the conclusion. And if you look in USPAP, and if you look at the definition of work file, all the work file is support for your conclusions. So you're supposed to have support for your conclusions. Why not explain the support? Why not explain the derivation of the support? If you're going to make a GLA adjustment, you're going to say the GLA adjustment is $87 a square foot. And then you better say how you got that, because if that's a period and then a new paragraph, somebody is going to say, well, okay, how did you support that? Well, there are a whole bunch of ways to support it. So support it. Otherwise, it comes across as nothing more than a guess. And let's face it, Dustin, the GSEs are not paying us to guess. They're paying us to advise them. And they need our advice. So as a result, let's give it to them. And then, damn it, let's charge them a fair fee for it.
Well, and see, I'm so glad you brought that up, Tim, because in the same vein, appraisers are saying things like, are we even going to be needed in the future? Do they even want appraisers around? Are they trying to get rid of appraisers? And what I hear you saying is, yeah, they actually are trying to get rid of a lazy, we'll call them lazy appraisers, right? Appraisers that just continue to do the same things that they've always done because that's the way they've always done it. And I'm hearing you say, Tim, that we need to start questioning our value by saying, you know what? If we're just going to put in desirable neighborhood and not support or give evidence as to why it's quote unquote desirable, then maybe appraisers like that need to be replaced in the future, where on the positive side, appraisers who are willing to step back and be humble and say, you know what? Yeah, that is kind of a dumb word. Why am I using the word desirable? And frankly, and I'll even go one step further, Tim, some people are really upset, and I've fallen into this, right? When I heard that you can't use words like good and average and fair, I'm like, come on, really? You're getting a little stupid at this point. But then when you think about it, what makes something good? What makes something average? What makes something fair?
Yeah, I mean, average is a series of numbers added up and then divided by the number of numbers in the series.
Yeah.
Well, how do you make it? How do you get an average neighborhood?
That's a good point. Yeah. Are we even questioning the language we've used?
Yeah. I mean, out in Western United States, you guys are not getting the amount of rainwater and snow that you have historically gotten. So the average has fallen. Well, that's measurable. That's quantifiable. Okay. But, how do you say, well, we haven't gotten as much water as we have in the past, but the deer still look average. What's an average deer? Okay. So we say that and like we really care when we don't. But we are not talking general conversation here. We are talking technical documents, a real estate appraisal. Therefore, what we put in that document has got to be quantifiable. And if the state deer authority, whatever that is, said, typically there are 12 deer per square mile, but now with the drought, there are only 8.7 deer per square mile. Okay, then the average is decreased. Okay. Or the average deer adult male deer used to weigh 437 pounds. And now they only weigh 418 pounds because they're not getting the same amount of food because of the lack of water. Okay, that's quantifiable. But just to say, oh yeah, Dustin drives an average car. Well, what's an average car? There's an average Chevrolet, there's an average Bentley, and there's an average SUV. What is it? It doesn't mean anything. So I don't think the GSEs are trying to be sensorial. I think they're saying, guys, help yourselves. Explain what's going on. Give us reason to believe you. We want to. Give us reason to believe you. Persuade us you're right. So that's how I see it. But I'm probably wrong. Just ask my wife.
Tim, thank you. As always, great wisdom from a great man. How do people get a hold of you if they are interested in your services?
Tim at theappraisersadvocate.com, and I will be happy to help them out.
Thank you, my friend. We'll catch you next time.
Dustin, I appreciate it. My best to you and your family, and go buy some more green shirts.
Yeah, will do.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.